All right, let's jump right in. We're going to take a trip back in time, a time when going to the doctor could actually be way scarier than whatever was wrong with you. We're digging into some of the wildest, most bizarre, and honestly, pretty terrifying medical treatments from America's past. Okay, let me ask you something. You've got a killer headache. What do? Take some aspirin? Drink some water? How about drilling a hole in your skull? Yeah, I know, it sounds absolutely insane, but believe it or not, that was a real medical procedure. And it really sets the scene for what we're talking about today, a time when the line between a cure and, well, a complete disaster was super, super thin. So, to really get how any of this could have happened, you gotta put yourself in their shoes. We're talking about a world with no concept of germs, no antibiotics, none of the stuff we take for granted. Doctors were basically just guessing. They were working off old theories and philosophies, not actual scientific evidence. They were doing their best, for sure, but they were pretty much flying blind, completely in the dark. So this lack of knowledge, it led to some, let's call them interesting ideas, and a lot of them were pretty dangerous. One of the biggest ideas was this concept of removal. The logic, when you think about it, is kind of simple, right? If there's something bad inside you making you sick, well, you just got to take it out. Seems logical enough. But that one simple idea, it was a driving force behind some of the most common and, frankly, most brutal treatments back then. And you see this take-it-out logic applied in a couple of really wild ways. Take bloodletting, for instance. The belief was that a fever was caused by too much bad blood. So what's the cure? Obvious. You just drain some of it out. Then you've got something called trepanation. If you were having seizures or severe headaches, the thinking was that you had, evil spirits trapped inside your skull. The solution? You guessed it. Cut a hole in your head to let them out. Same logic, totally different and terrifying applications. And we're not talking about taking a pill here. Oh no. These cures were seriously physical. The tools they used, I mean, come on. They had leeches for what they called a gentle bloodletting. They had these super sharp knives called lancets to do it faster. And for trepanation, they were using actual saws and hand drills on people's heads. It was just so brutal, so direct, totally hands-on. Of course, the big problem was these cures didn't actually work. Shocker, right? When you drain blood from someone who's already sick, you're not getting rid of the illness. You're just making them weaker, anemic, and even more likely to get sicker. And drilling a hole in someone's skull before antibiotics existed? That's basically just rolling out a welcome mat for a deadly infection. Okay, so bloodletting and skull drilling are pretty out there, I get it. But believe me when I say they have nothing on what's coming next. If you thought that was weird, you might want to brace yourself, because we're about to talk about what could possibly be the single strangest medical treatment of all time. And no, I am not making this up. This was a 100% real procedure. Doctors took it completely seriously. It was mainstream. Get ready for it. The tobacco smoke enema. Yep. You heard that right. It is exactly what it sounds like. A procedure where they would literally blow tobacco smoke up a patient's rectum. I know. The first question that pops into your head is probably why, and the second and third questions are probably also why. Okay, so here's the crazy part. The main reason they did this, it was to try and bring drowning victims back to life. Yeah. The thinking was that the warm, stimulating smoke would sort of shock the person's system back into action. They even had emergency kits for this, set up along rivers like the Thames in London, just in case someone fell in. The whole theory was that the smoke would act as a powerful stimulant, right? That it would kickstart breathing again. I mean, it was a total long shot, a desperate attempt to deal with a life or death situation using the weird tools they had available. And well, as you can probably guess, the results were not great. The practice eventually and thankfully just faded away. So it's really easy for us to sit here now and just be horrified, to laugh at how absurd it all sounds. But if we really want to understand this, we have to look past the what and get to the why. This wasn't doctors being evil. This was about pure desperation when facing things they just didn't understand. You can almost see the thought process, can't you? It goes something like this. Step 1. You've got a huge, scary problem, like a person who isn't breathing. Step 2. You feel this intense pressure to do something, anything, because doing nothing feels like giving up. Step 3. You come up with a theory based on the very limited knowledge you have, and that leads to step 4. You try out a very strange cure. It's so important to remember that doctors doing this stuff weren't quacks or villains. They were often the most educated people around, working with the best information they had at the time. It's kind of like they were explorers trying to map a huge dark forest, but they didn't have a map or a compass or even a flashlight. They were just trying their best. And that's really the key takeaway here. This stuff matters because it shows us that the history of medicine is a story of trial and error. A lot of error. For every amazing cure we have today, there's a whole graveyard of bizarre ideas that didn't pan out. It just makes you really appreciate how incredibly far we've come. So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We look back at this stuff and we're just shocked, right? But it makes you wonder, what are we doing right now in our hospitals that people 100 years from now will look back on and think, wow, they did what? What's our tobacco smoke enema? It's a pretty humbling thought, and it's a great reminder that this journey of figuring things out, it's never really over.